excited. This is somebody that I met about a year and a half ago. I love this guy. This is David Hartmann from SilverLogic. Hi, David.
Hey there.
Hi. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you. We met a year and a half ago or so when I was getting into that whole world of startups and the ecosystem of dealing with investors and building apps and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to have you for sure. Would you take a moment for me, please, and tell our audience a little bit about yourself and more specifically your experience and successes as a business owner and entrepreneur?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and my pleasure. So my experience, my background is engineering, and I've loved building technology all along. But then about now, almost 8 years ago, I started the SilverLogic as a first just app company, development company, making some websites. Then we navigated into apps. But that journey has really then taken more and more shape as time passed on. We had three co-founders in the beginning, and now we're about 38, 39 employees that are venturing through and navigating the seas of COVID-19 this year and other fun things to deal with. So it's been quite the exciting journey to make it from really just team of co-founders to a larger entity. And along that path, I've actually been now part of a variety of different startups, of other companies where I serve as CTO, of organizations where I'm an advisor on or a mentor, such as the venture mentoring team, Tech Runway, Watson Institute. So it's been quite the interesting journey to go from just starting to just get some client in, to then transform that to growing the team, getting bigger and bigger, and then just also venturing out to the community portion of technology and really seeing where can I support the community and do things that go beyond just revenue and making money as a business.
Very nice. And what got you into opening up your own from going from being an engineer? Did you work for a corporate environment?
Yes, so there I was mostly freelancing on my own for different companies, and then I met a buddy in a class back in college, and we were both doing things that could help each other, and said, "Hey, let's see what we can do together." And we found another guy that did more design. I was more focused on iOS apps. He was focused on web, and the other guy was focused on design. So we said, "Hey, let's see what we can do instead of all individually subcontracting each other on various projects. Let's see what we can do if we join forces." And there it turned out that I was more entrepreneurially wired than the other two. At some point, we parted ways and decided they wanted to get jobs, and I continued the journey off on my own, bought them out. But it was all in good spirits. It was better to figure that out early on than later. And so we still talk. Just had a chat with one of them or lunch not too recently. So it's all good to figure that out early on and then carry on.
Yeah.
But that's been a really good journey. I've always loved building, and be it as a freelancer or now through the company. So freelancing has given me a very good, like, the technical background. But then I decided that I could do more and build more, putting that in a company and hiring people, growing a team. And that's been a very exciting journey to not only just grow, have more, like, increase revenue year over year, but also enlarge the team, have more members, but then also all the other fun parts of figure out the best process, figure out how to build a culture, how to hire people, how to hire the right people, when to terminate people. Those are all sorts of exciting and interesting things. Some not so exciting, but all of them interesting things to learn and figure out over time. And that's where I, at some point, knew that, hey, it's run a little bit in my family. Well, my mom, dad, and brother, we've all started companies. So I think we all have that spirit of let's start something and see where it can go and how large we can grow it. So that was sort of almost in my wiring. And then yeah, meeting them was that first spark of seeing, hey, let's go to that next level. And that's why I said engineering my background, and now we build really exciting products, and we can build as a company. I can now produce things and architect things and develop them that are much bigger than the individual pieces that I could have built just as individual.
Yeah, I love that. What a great resourcefulness. And then kind of a partnership comes together and makes the pieces to the puzzle fit together. And, whatever works out from there works out. It's really cool. You guys are still keeping in touch and utilizing their services as well, I'm sure. So very neat. Well, thank you for sharing that. Obviously, this was a process. You said it's been 8 years. So knowing what you know now, if you had to start all over again and build a company, what would that process look like? Do you have any advice for a first time entrepreneur or a small business owner that's just starting out?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things that have just I've noticed throughout that journey that yeah would have probably made the journey smoother. One is, as you start out, I'm a big fan of let's not get stuck in legal stuff or agreements, but and I have to follow my own advice there often enough that do set out, even if it's not all super formal in an agreement yet, but do make sure you're on the same page with whoever you're founding something with. If there's more than one of you, then make sure you're all on the same page of what are your responsibilities, because otherwise it can very easily lead to conflict and clashes. And I've seen enough startups fall apart over founder issues, of just where some people think they're pulling more weight than others. And they might, the especially sad part is when two parties both think they're pulling more weight and think the other one is not doing anything. That's especially a bad scenario. So just defining that, because the opposite can work beautifully, that when you have others in your team that you know their strengths and you know what their responsibilities are and you can count on them to do those pieces, then you can really enhance each other. And sometimes it's just a matter of perspective,
Yeah.
to straighten it out and just say, look, this is what are your strengths, what are you responsible for. And then when it comes to distribution, when it comes to salary, when it comes to who has how many shares, that those things get some idea of it early on. Because I had the not clean version twice. When I had the co-founders, we weren't really clean in setting up founding docs, and we didn't do vesting. Big recommendation: do vesting anytime, even on yourself. Put it on everybody, because then investors feel better about it, and you and your co-founders, everybody's kept responsible for and accountable to pulling their weight, doing whatever it is they need to do. Because if they don't, you don't sit in a situation where everybody has equal shares, even though people were contributing differently.
Yeah.
So having those things cleanly set up saves you a lot of headache. And overall, be it with co-founders or employees, address, the second sort of advice. If I had to do things over, it's a really tough one, either parting ways with your co-founders or terminating employees. It's from very different perspectives and levels, but it's very similar things that need to be addressed. And it's something that I recommend. Do it the earlier the better. Don't It's something I hate doing it still. If I have to let someone go, I hate it. It's terrible, but I usually know it's not just better likely for the company, but it's also better for that individual to have. Because if you're thinking about terminating them, you're not promoting them or giving them a raise. So they're likely in a spot where they're stuck, where they're not performing, and likely where they're not happy. So it might sound a little self-serving, but it's most likely they're not happy, but they probably don't want to lose the income. Most likely you can push them to do something else, to go somewhere else, and hopefully find a path that's better for them. And especially for the rest of the company, you're doing the rest of your team a disservice by keeping around the person that really shouldn't be on that team anymore. Because for one, they're costing you revenue and resources, that they're increasing expense without providing appropriate value, which endangers everybody else's position. And secondly, it's a bad example set for the rest of your team members. If that one person isn't pulling their weight, then others might look at it and say, hey, I'm working really hard and this person's not. Why is he still around? Or why are we being treated equally? And they might not know that their salary is much higher than the other person's, or that they have other benefits, that they're not equal, but it's just from a morale and team perspective, it's something pretty crucial and impactful that I had to learn several times, that, hey, it sucks to do it, but rather do it than drag it around or drag it out into sometimes having, like, pushing it out a week, a month, several months, 6 months, and then you're still at the same spot. And most likely you're getting angry, more and more not happy. The team is, and that individual is probably not in the happiest spot either.
Yeah, and that whole dynamic changes. It makes sense. Yeah, sometimes the tough things to do is probably the best long term for everybody involved. You're right. Let me ask you, what is or are some of the biggest fears you've had to overcome going through the process of building your own company and your own business?
So I think one of the biggest ones, and I'm pretty sure most entrepreneurs out there will share this one, is payroll. It's just one big scary thing. And if you're more material based, then it can be vendor bills. But it's the thing that happens usually every month or every 2 weeks, of having that big bill come up and seeing, oh shit, is there enough money in the account to cover it? And it's, for me, that was a big fear early on that I wasn't even really ready to speak about or address, because I was embarrassed of it. And it makes it even worse to have that fear and not be able to share it anywhere or talk about it even, because you're afraid of, oh wait, I'm just really a bad business person if I'm afraid about that. But no, I've now heard from enough people, peers, others, that even people really successful, that there have been many times where they were on a Wednesday and that, oh shit, moment of, I don't know how to cover payroll on Friday. But usually the entrepreneur's spirit is often enough tested by, you get to that point. And I've often been in that spot on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm like, shit, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm going to make it happen. I owe it to all the people in this company that I'm going to make that happen, because not the best thing for morale if that doesn't happen on a Friday. And so far, I mean, knock on wood, I've always made it happen. And now we're luckily in a spot where we have some buffer of months ahead. But it's always been a weird, scary thing. And I just encourage any entrepreneurs listening to this, that you're not alone out there. Talk about it, share it. It's not something you can easily share with employees. Don't scare them. It's maybe with your executive team, with your co-founders, or with other friends. Find some peers that are fellow founders, because those are some of the things that you can talk about with them, and they might have similar views on it. And don't just read a book where it says, okay, yes, you should always have 3 to 6 months of run rate sitting in a bank account, because that stuff's really hard. That it took me quite a while to get to the point to have that sitting there. And then that's quite a significant amount of money that's just sitting there. So that's the easy thing that someone not leading a business may throw at you, but obviously much harder to achieve if you're actually in the grind and working on it and doing it.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a scary thing, especially when you're responsible for multiple employees. Well, obviously we're still in COVID. You mentioned that as well. How have you had to pivot in your business during this time?
Mostly the business itself, we can operate still pretty much the same. We were really, from one day to the next, everybody in the company has MacBooks, so it was really easy to just, okay, take them home. You're taking them home usually anyway, so just don't come to the office tomorrow. But that aside, it's been really the big pivot on how we market and how we get out our name out there, because that was really focused on networking events, on trade shows, on whatever social events that you don't have anymore right now, and that's been a pretty big gap. I'm happy that we've just it's pushed us in a new direction of marketing, be it online, be it getting upping our SEO game, finding other ways of getting introductions and referrals, because that's what usually happens. Majority source of our revenue is from word of mouth referrals, and we've just had to become more creative of where to get them, because now we're not at super many networking events where and trade shows. I mean, I would go to a trade show as a really efficient method of reconnecting with a lot of people and meeting a lot of new people and just grooming certain relationships that are there, because instead of meeting for a lunch or a coffee and spending half an hour to an hour with this person and driving in between this person and this person in one 5 to 8 hour day, I could have 30, 40, 50 of those meetings, because it's just lots of people where often enough that handshake and a 5 minute conversation is enough to be in the forefront of their mind again.
Yeah.
But that's something that unfortunately now is paused. I'm sure you're in the event space, and that's torturous right now. But there we're just more online and digital marketing, experimenting with ads, and then just taking different approaches to that introduction and referral piece of how do we get into people's mind again about and help them be creative about who they could refer us to. Because just saying someone, hey, if you know anyone that needs XYZ, let them know. Or if you know anyone that needs software, for us that's such a vague statement that people won't necessarily think of that. But if we describe it enough for them, and even the step farther we're going now is just, let me look at your network and let me see if I see someone in there, and then ask you specifically to introduce me to that person. And that's sort of more similar to what would happen naturally at a networking event. If we meet that person, this person at the same time, and Joe says, hey, let me introduce you to Peter. Just that's now needs to happen more in phone calls and emails, which is just, it's harder, but I think this is pushing us into figuring out paths that make us sustainable without all the networking, so that once in probably 2021 that comes back, we can really start through and get into the next level.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. We've had the same situation and with my business as well. And hence why these summits are so great. I mean, you find ways to tap into everybody's network and give them value and hopefully gain referrals from that. So you got to get creative. That's all. Let me ask you, so what does success mean to you?
A variety of things. It's obviously the standard metrics that all business owners love to compare with themselves by is revenue and revenue, employees, and profit. Surprisingly, most talk about revenue and then employees and then only lastly profit. But those are really critical things, and I think profit is likely one that should actually should have more looks on than it's sort of the pushed aside child. But that's also because most business owners use their profit to reinvest it to keep scaling. And if you're quickly scaling and you just hire new people every month, then that profit is slimmer than it would be if you just stop the growth part and just use the money that you make and keep it the same size. But what's for me really success is seeing what we produce out there, seeing the tools that we build have impact on others, and just having that pride of, look, yes, that's that thing we built. Be it a software that runs a company internally, there's less to see, but it's still for me, for some of our clients, when I used to go visit them at their headquarters or at their offices, and then seeing their employees using the tool we built for them is one big piece of success for me, because them being in the next level really is them being excited about the tool and telling me how it has made their life easier, how it saves them a lot of time, how they get more stuff done. That's a big deal for me, because that shows the value of the work we do and the impact it has on others. And for me, the next step then comes naturally, that someone that we help save a lot of time, a lot of money, is naturally going to continue being a client, and revenue and profit will fall just in line from there.
From there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. All right. So one last question for you. We all have our routines, and I'm always curious to know what someone as yourself that's successful in their own business, what does your morning routine look like that keeps you in that level of mindset and helps you throughout the day, stay in that vibration?
So I think there my answer differs quite a lot on a pre and post COVID or pre and mid COVID answer, because I think my morning routine and my day routine, my entire day has changed quite dramatically from one time frame to another. And I think it's not only the morning routine, it's a day and as well as evening routine where on a week. So for me, my Monday through Friday are really intense usually. I mean, the day starts usually around 8:30, 9 with meetings. And pre-COVID, there would be more things that I did before then. Now, during COVID, there's not as many things I do before then. I mean, my most impactful thing is I'm a morning shower person. I use that time for just as a refresher, and two, thinking. I have the weirdest interests, like weirdest little ideas that just while relaxed in a shower come to mind. Then I have my little morning smoothie, which keeps me energized and good for the day. But then sort of the more, I would say, unusual answer parts are that I work a long day. I might work till 7:30, 8:30, 9 p.m. Depending on the day. And now without COVID, I don't even know how I did travel time before, because I'm at home and my day is packed back to back. I don't know where I used to drive from place to place, like just to commute to office to home, but also to clients. And I don't know when that would be happening now. Um, but for me, really important is that I make a big clear cut. Then once the weekend comes around, I brainstorm stuff and work on things, but I try to keep the weekend for either the bigger picture long-term things to get to, not just the daily grind. So sort of really cutting that out intentionally on the weekend, as well as many weekends. And I've taken that inspiration from a client early on that was Jewish. So for him, Saturday was just, he was offline, he was going dark. And I took that as inspiration and something that I took on as well, that most Saturdays, I mean, I'm not dark, I still use my phone, but I just disconnect. I don't do much business on Saturdays, and sometimes even on the weekend, to have a really nice break from everything and embrace it. Go out in nature, do activities, like really make this my weekends. And before COVID, they were even more packed with that. I would drive somewhere, go to Universal, or go into a zip lining and climbing park, and all sorts of really energetic and outside things that would really revitalize me and get me hyped up for the next week to power through and then have more fun. And that makes it also that I do want vacation every once in a while, but by having those really fun and energetic weekends, it's already little mini vacations. Obviously, nice to then have a full week or 2 weeks of something, but having those everywhere and in between makes it a lot easier to stay sane, stay energetic, and really have fun at what you're doing, which is, I would say, the really other very important aspect. Enjoy what you're doing, embrace it. For me, doing what I do is a fun activity. So having those that on the weekend, sometimes working on some long-term goals of what can we achieve, how can I structure this type of thing, or how do I architect this, is possibly that's just as fun of an activity as is watching a show on Netflix.
Right. I love that. That's so true, though. You do have to make time for your own self and for your own, I guess you would call it self-care, and then your family, and just being able to have even a breather from the constant work, work, work mindset. It helps you reboot. So Very important. Well, thank you for that. Is there any last little golden nuggets you'd like to share with our audience?
I think we've covered plenty of them. But on that last, like off the sort of work-life balance, most people would probably not consider my life super balanced. There's lots of work in there, but I enjoy it and I embrace it. Um, Main nuggets are, for one, have your own perspective. If you, just because most people say, hey, you need that balance, or you can't work all the time. If you enjoy what you're doing, don't let them necessarily drag you down into that you need to feel stressed out. I embrace stress to some degree, that I just function, and I can be in a very tight situation but remain calm, and here's the things that I need to do. Let's get them done, instead of losing my cool and freaking out. um if you I define certain things as fun that otherwise other people would define as work, but by me redefining that, I can enjoy them. It doesn't matter if I do them at 11 p.m. at night. For me, possibly the fun activity I could be doing. I mean, I love all sorts of, I have a little indoor garden that I started luckily right before this. I like going outdoors in nature, but I also enjoy making, like, analyzing data. So sometimes at 11 p.m. I'll sit there and look over some data and see what correlations I can find, or what interesting spots I find. Some may see that as work, but for me that is an enjoyable thing. That cool, I can get to that. Now it's quiet, it's middle of the night, and be it 11 p.m. or be it 2 a.m. I made a dashboard for something the other night because I was like, would be really interesting to see how this data turns out if I visualize it. And keep that in mind, that pick your own definition of what you see as fun and what you see as work, because for others, gardening could be a chore, depending if that's the main thing you're doing. It could be that that's work for someone. For me, that's my little meditation piece of trimming my herbs, harvesting them for cooking a nice dinner. In the same way, whatever you do, embrace it and enjoy it enough so you can define it as, hey, that's a thing I really enjoy. I don't mind doing it at some weird and random hours.
I'm so glad you said that, because people always make fun of me because I love to clean. And I'm just weird about it. It's like, for me, cleaning is my meditation. It's the most
Yeah,
weird thing. I go figure.
I'm sure anybody around you really appreciates that type of meditation.
Right? Awesome. Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're slammed, but I really appreciate you doing this interview with us. And I look forward to seeing you soon. It's been a while.
Yeah, hopefully someday again. No, thank you again so much for having me. And yeah, if anybody's curious about what we do, check us out at tsl.io. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. Email me or reach out to me on Twitter.
Perfect. And we'll put all your information under the video for everybody. So I really appreciate it. All
Awesome.
right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Peace. Bye.